Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to class. Hope everyone is doing well today. Today, we are going to start with the fourth day of business skills training. And I'd like to welcome our presenter, Graham, back to today's meeting. So, good morning, Graham, and welcome back.
Good morning, Anisha. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. And yeah, I'd like to hand the session over to you, and you may start off once you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Anisha. I will just set my screen to my side. That'll be great. Yes, welcome back, everybody. A different topic today. Yesterday, of course, was sales and then marketing. Today, we're going to look at strategic management and planning. And this is really a very interesting area. No matter what your role or position in an organization, or even trying to understand the big organizations, and even if you're starting a company, a small business, this is a very valuable session for you today. As before, I will pause just before the break for questions and answers. And then at the end, I will leave some time to respond to the questions that you send. So please, as I go through, if there are things you would like to ask or things that you don't quite understand or would like me to explain further on, please send questions through the Q&A feature, and Anisha and her colleagues will look at those and select a few for me to answer. As always, I hope this serves as both an introduction and gives you a good understanding of the subject. But as always, there's so much to learn in many of these business skills topics. So, before we start in looking at the whole area of strategic management, let's quickly review some of the things from yesterday. These are the questions, the 10 questions or so that were at the end of your slides for you to look at yesterday. The first question was, what is the first step in a sales process? Well, clearly, that's obviously making contact. That doesn't have to be in person. We can make contact, obviously, with social media and email, maybe a poster or some sort of letter in the post. Those are still used a lot in many parts of the world. So you've got to let the customer know that you and your business exist. It doesn't really matter. Number two, what is the best way to approach new prospects? Well, it could be email, telephone, social media, post, advertising, all of the above. And most good sales departments will use a mix of these. Sales calls objectives must have MIL objectives. The missing word here is like. Must achieve, I intend to achieve, and what I would like to achieve. This is my dream objective if everything goes really well. Salespeople must always be positive and optimistic, but you also sometimes have to be pragmatic. That means practical. Now, a sales funnel, this is the terminology we use. The sales funnel comprises of suspects and prospects. They lead us to become customers, but prospects and suspects, a little bit of sales jargon there. Number 5, what is a cold call? A cold call is a telephone call to someone you do not know, you've never spoken to before. 6, how can you transform a cold call into a warm call? Well, any of these would work, but the example I used specifically in the session yesterday was sending an email, connecting on LinkedIn and other sites, of course, but sending them a present or gift in some cases can be appropriate. Number 7, question 7. What does the A in AIDA stand for? In this example, it's attention. So C is the right answer for number 7. Question number 8. Of course, a good sales presentation contains relevant stories. And by stories, I mean examples or case studies. You might also want to put facts and features and special offers into your presentation, but the most important is relevant examples, stories, and case studies. Number 9, which is the number one way we communicate? Well, in the studies, they believe it to be visual and body language, and my experience would also prove that to be true. So in question number 9, the right answer we're looking for is C. Question number 10. When dealing with objections, you can use the APAC technique, APAC. P in this case stands for probe. Probing meaning asking questions and understand more about their objection. So there we are. Those are the 10 questions from yesterday. And that brings us back to the today topic of strategic management and planning. Now, interestingly, strategic management started about 50 years ago. A man called Peter Drucker wrote a book called The Effective Executive, and it changed the way managers and leaders and business people thought about their organization. And this whole idea of management by objectives, as it became known, started, and it started then. And to be honest, Peter Drucker's revelation or discovery has been evolved, and it's changed, and it's developed over those 50 years. But nobody has come out with a better way of managing an organization. So today I'm going to share 3 of the most important ideas and concepts with you. Strategic management and planning and the benefits to both you and your organization. The tool called a SWOT analysis, and then number 14, module 14, creating performance measures. And when combined, these 3 give you the ability to manage a team, a family, a division, a department, a country, a company, an organization. And we'll look at some examples as we go through this session. So let's move on. In the first module, I'm going to look at why it's so important to be strategically focused. I'm going to introduce you to something we call the balanced scorecard. How strategic planning needs to be run, the benefits of doing so, and maybe the consequences and the problems occur if you don't do strategic planning, and how the balanced scorecard can be used. And it may be used in an organization that you're working with, but you're not aware of it. There are little clues I'll give you to find out if it's being used. So let's just quickly review some of the examples I will be referring to and to start off with. Now, what can you see there? If you look at this picture, it looks like a building site. What can you see? Well, you can see people putting bricks on top of each other, moving materials, making cement, these kind of things. And this is a concept that they use a lot in discussing leadership and management. What are these people doing? They're building a wall. No. They're laying bricks. No. They're building a school and an orphanage that's going to have a fantastic effect and impact on the lives of hundreds and thousands of people in the local community. People don't just lay bricks, they build a better future for themselves. In all the research that's been done, most recently one book by Dan Pink called Drive, he highlights, and people have discovered, that purpose is more important than profit. Employees, stakeholders, shareholders, us as members of a community are driven to do what we do by a sense of purpose and of higher values and well-being. So an organization today, particularly in 2020, has to focus on its purpose, not just its ability or its desire to make a profit or achieve certain performance goals. And we'll explore this theory and this theme as we go through this morning. Let me explain a little further. Many of you will recognize this as Dubai Airport, Dubai International Airport. Probably one of the finest airports ever built, one of the finest airports in the world. There is no question. Until 2 years ago, the busiest international airport in the world was Heathrow in London. But not now. Dubai International Airport ships more international travelers around the world than any airport in the world. They are the global leaders in international travel. Now, this didn't happen by accident. This was their mission statement a few years ago. We deliver a world-class experience to our customers by providing safe, secure, and environmentally responsible airports. We work in partnership with our airlines and our stakeholders to drive the growth of Dubai. Now, that doesn't say anything about becoming the biggest airport in the world. It doesn't mention anything about making thousands of millions of dollars of profit from their duty free or their landing fees. What it says is their purpose. And the stakeholders are their airlines, their employees, the staff, the passengers, and their priorities are safe, secure, and environmentally responsible airports. I like the way they use the S. Maybe they have more airports planned. So that's their vision and, if you like, vision statement and mission statement, of after which the goals and objectives are set. You recognize this logo. This is, of course, BP. This logo changed many years ago from their old initials of BP. And I think at the time, the company that designed this logo was paid $500,000 in fees for coming up with this image. And it's a kind of a plant, and it's green, and it looks lovely, and it's pretty, but it represents an oil company. Now, BP's mission statement today, and they've been in the news just this week, so you may have heard about some of the changes in their business. The changes in the business usually don't mean a change in mission or vision. All the activities we seek to display some unchanging fundamental qualities: integrity, honest dealing, treating everyone with respect and dignity, striving for mutual advantage, and contributing to human progress. And the vision statement is to have the best competitive corporate, operating, and financial performance to improve and be accessible, inclusive, and diverse. Now, that doesn't mention oil. It doesn't mention petrol or gas or aviation fuel. It goes bigger than that. And these are good examples of these vision and mission statements. This is one you may recognize from the Saudi Arabia, the Vision 2030. Clearly, there are targets for economic development and infrastructure building and so on. But the mission and the vision is a vibrant society, a thriving economy, and an ambitious nation. It's always our vision and mission that needs to drive the people, the stakeholders, the business, the managers, the decisions, the planning, and the progress. This is Singapore, if you haven't recognized it yet, an astonishing place. And this is their mission statement. There is an Enterprise Singapore organization whose job it is to promote Singapore around the world as a place of tourism, commerce, and a place to live. And this is their mission and vision statement: a vibrant economy with globally competitive Singapore enterprises. Grow stronger Singapore enterprises. That's the word they use for businesses, by building capabilities and assessing global opportunities, thereby creating good jobs for Singaporeans. Enterprise Singapore is the government agency championing enterprise development. So what does all this mean? Well, this means this is the direction of travel for our organization. And as opportunities in the marketplace come up, as problems in the economy occur, as decisions have to be made by the management team and the board, they look back at their vision and mission and say, does this fit our direction of travel? Does this fit who we are as a business, as an organization? Is this part of our mission for being, our purpose for living, as it were, as an organization. And if it does, we move forward with that decision or with that change. If it doesn't, we turn away from that and stay on our path. And this is how this strategic planning is used. Here's the last one. This is from a bank, the first Abu Dhabi bank. Our mission is to put customers first by motivating, educating, and inspiring them to achieve their goals at each stage of their lives. So this is important for the bank because it means they're going to have to offer everything from bank accounts to mortgages and property loans and business finance and pensions and insurance, all the things we're going to need during our lives. It's a very clear mission statement. So these are usually developed by taking the management team away for a few days, and they discuss and they talk and they discuss and they talk. And I've been on some of these, and you will spend hours arguing over a sentence or a word. But at the end of the 2 or 3 days, or maybe a week, you come back with a really clear definition of where that business fits in the world and where it's going to be in 10, 20, 30 years' time. So let me explain in the session today the benefits of doing this and the tools that managers use. Now, one of the first tools, and we'll look at this in some detail, is a balanced scorecard. Now, this was developed by Kaplan and Norton a few years ago from Harvard University. And it's very, very useful, and it's very popular. And it's been implemented and adapted in many of the world's most successful and the world's largest organizations. The interesting thing is running a business is hard, it's difficult, it's challenging. Sometimes the television programs and documentaries and the newspapers and so on might seem to make running a business rather simple. It's a bit like being a football manager. If you're sat on the side watching the football game, it can seem really obvious who should be playing and how they should be playing. But the decisions the manager has to make and the job he does or she does is very difficult. So the balanced scorecard was designed as a way of integrating the senior level goals, the vision and mission, with the tactical day-to-day decisions, actions, and activity to make the job of managers easier. So we change through executive leadership. All change has to come from the top. This is the theory, and by and large, in most cases, it's the best way of working. Then we go to number 2. We have to take that strategy, that big long-term plan, and turn it into what we call operational terms. The how, if you like. How are we going to do it? Then we align it, number 3, to what the organization does. So we cascade the goals down like a waterfall into departmental goals, job descriptions, departmental goals, and so on. Next is number 4. And you have to make everyone's job achieving your long-term goal, your strategy. And we'll talk about how the balanced scorecard can do this. And indeed, it is that missing link. And number 5, it has to be continual. Whilst the vision and mission statement should be not very often done, it should be something you do occasionally and then left alone, because you don't want to keep changing direction. That's just confusing to everybody, including your customers and stakeholders. But the strategic application, the constant trimming of the wings, the constant review of are we on course or off course, needs to be monitored, and that's usually done through analytics and complex information feedback. And the balanced scorecard is more like a dashboard in a car in many ways. It will give you that feedback at a much lower level than senior managers. So if you have a bad year of results, it's usually too late to start making tactical changes in your team or products or operations. So this is the balanced scorecard approach, and we're going to develop this a bit further. Before I do that, though, I want to take a quick poll. As you may know, the Zoom system has the ability to take a poll. So the poll I'm going to share with you now, we have a few of these today, is asking you a personal question in that what is most important to you in working for an organization? Let me launch the poll, allow you to read the questions, and I'd like you to vote for the one that is most important to you. Is it developing new skills, gaining promotion, interesting work, or regular pay increases? Which is the single most important? I know they're all important, but which is number one for you? Please take a moment to score your opinion. Okay, we've got about half the people doing this, so just another 30 seconds to a minute. If you haven't voted yet, click on the option. I can see there's a definite winner here. I will share this with you when you've finished. Okay, so I know you would like to say they're all important, but we know that sometimes one of these is more important than the others. If you were offered a new position in your organization or a new position in a different organization, what would you look for? What would be key? All right, another 15 seconds, and then I'm going to pause this poll and I'll share the results with you. So if you haven't yet voted, please take a moment to click on the response for you. All right. By the way, I won't let your bosses see this because you'll see why in just a moment. Right, so let's end the poll. Let's share the results with you. So 43% of you that voted, which is just over half the group, is the chance to develop some skills. Second was interesting work. Third was gain promotion. And the least important to you, last on the list, was a regular pay increase. Now, this highlights what a lot of psychologists have found. We like to learn, develop, and grow as people. And we like work, which is the word they use is engaging, or at least we can make it engaging, even if it's not that interesting ourselves. So we're going to do a few more of those, and they're quite an interesting way of finding out what you're thinking. So here is a busy slide. I'd like you to just have a look at this for a minute and I will explain everything. This is basically the balance scorecard. The thing in the middle with the blue is I put in there how vision and strategy fits into the balance scorecard. But the balance scorecard, well, the clue is in the name. It's balanced between 4 areas of a business, or 4, if you like, areas of focus of a business. And it creates a scorecard or a measure in each of those 4 areas. You see, if you have a business, an organization, it doesn't have to be a business, by the way. It can be a hospital, it could be a local authority, it could be the army, it could be the police, and their job is not to make a profit. That they have different missions, but the balanced scorecard can still be used. If you make it all about saving money or making money, it becomes unbalanced. If you make it all about creating a lovely place to work and everyone has fantastic jobs and huge pay rises, it becomes unbalanced. If it becomes all about customer service and saying yes to customers and making sales, it becomes unbalanced. If it becomes all about internal processes and efficiencies and procedures, it becomes unbalanced. So what we need to do is to create an even spread between these 4. And this is where the vision and strategy comes in. The strategy should have some clear objectives. It then produces a strategy map with performance measures for that strategy. And typically in a commercial organization, that would be things like sales and profit and market share. The implementation of that then involves the second side of that circle. So initiatives are programs and projects. You analyze that, you keep aligning it to your strategy, and you evaluate your progress. And this is what the balanced scorecard does. It's the missing link between the strategic objectives and the implementation and achievement of those objectives in a very, very clever way. Okay, so let me just explain this in a little more detail and you'll see how this works. So this is typically, now we're getting into spreadsheet land. And balanced scorecard tends to live on a spreadsheet or a dedicated tool of sorts. So box number one is the financials. To succeed financially, how should we appear to our shareholders or stakeholders? The internal business process is to satisfy our shareholders and customers. What business processes must we be good at? What must we excel at to satisfy our shareholders and customers? By the way, Peter Drucker also came up with a very famous piece of wisdom where he said the purpose of a business is to create and keep a customer, and everything else is detail. And so he was very keen on that element, that business processes should support the customer. Learning and growth, this is the HR and training box. To achieve our vision, how must we develop and train our staff to change and improve? What skills and knowledge do we need in our business to achieve our goals, is what it's saying. And the last box, customer. To achieve our vision, how should we appear to our customers? So these are the 4 areas of focus. Inside each box, there are 4 categories, and these are the same categories in each element of the scorecard: objectives, measures, targets, and initiatives. And we're going to look at these in more detail. The thing I want to mention here, though, is that what you need to have is about 3 to 5 objectives for each of the balanced scorecard. It doesn't really work very well if you have, say, 10 objectives or goals for financial objectives and 2 for learning and growth. It will still become out of balance. So if you work in a department, a team in one of these areas, like accounting, or in operations, or warehousing, or logistics, or customer service, or sales, if your department has clear objectives with things like measures like KPIs and performance targets, and you have a series of initiatives or campaigns to improve things, and you're asked to attend training courses, it's very likely your organization has some form of balanced scorecard, because this is the clue. If your job description is written in a way that has measurable objectives, then it's likely that you have a balanced scorecard approach to your business. So let's look at the importance of this. Now, every business on the planet, every organization on the planet has to make some sort of profit or surplus or live within the budgets it's given. If you're a police force, for example, you are given a certain amount of expenditure from the government, and you have to make the country safe or the region safe using that resource and that budget. So that's the financial element. So all the time, the financial goals are about increasing the revenue, reducing cost, and maximizing profitability, or indeed efficiency if your goal is not profit. In the customer area, it will help us to improve customer satisfaction, improve overall sales, and the green box here is the brand image. And these once again link back to your vision and mission statement. The internal processes, it's all about improving the market processing, improve knowledge distribution, and improve external communications. These are the 3 examples I've chosen today. But anything that is going to simplify or speed up an internal process is of benefit. Organizational capacity. Well, this is the growth element. This is the learning and development. So reducing energy, improving staff skills, reducing mistakes, staff turnover, and improve the knowledge within the organization is very important. And obviously in training and development, what we do is transfer knowledge and transfer skills. Onboarding of new staff, moving people from one skill set to another. This is going to be interesting now. Many businesses have had 2 or 3 quiet months. Certainly in some countries, they've not been operating for 2 or 3 months as we speak today. And they will now have to reopen their doors to their customers. And maybe the staff have forgotten some of the ways of working. So some elements of retraining might now be important for businesses. The benefits and needs of strategic planning. Well, benefits to a firm that does good strategic planning. Well, you have better communication. Now, this is not just within the management team, but this is the participation of all the managers and the senior management team. In some organizations, you have a very strong chief executive or leader, and that's important, but it's more important that the leader takes counsel from the senior generals and the senior managers in his team or her team. But another benefit is they have a much deeper and improved understanding of what the organization is about and other people's views. This leads on to a greater commitment to achieve objectives. What we need in organizations today is not a sense of purpose, but what is needed is a commitment to achieve that purpose, that commitment to make things happen, a sense of belief that what we're working on is valuable and important, even if all you're doing is serving people coffee. That's an important principle, by the way, of Starbucks. Starbucks don't see themselves as a coffee shop. They see themselves as somebody who makes people's lives better. And that's an interesting difference between serving coffee. The result is that all managers and employees on a mission to help the firm succeed. There's a video online on YouTube of Kaplan and Norton talking about the balanced scorecard. And one of the companies they work with, the chief executive had little stickers made of the mission and vision statement and the objectives of the organization. And he had it put over all the walls, and he had it stuck on desks and on everywhere he could put it, so everyone could see what the benefits and the strategic objectives of the organization was. And he was had this challenge that he would walk through the factory. The chief executive could walk through the factory, and he'd stop and ask somebody in the warehouse, on the production line, driving a forklift, doesn't matter, and he'd say, "Excuse me, can I just ask you, what is the strategic objective and vision and mission for our company?" And the person had to be able to tell them, right? And if they couldn't, he would go and talk to their manager, because it was the manager's job to make sure every member of their team knew exactly what the objectives, the vision and mission of the business was. That was question number 1. Question number 2 was, can you tell me exactly how what you're doing right now contributes to the vision, mission, and objectives of our business? And if they couldn't, he would say, right, stop doing it and get on with something that does. All right. So this is a kind of a little bit of an exaggerated story, but it gets the point across. The benefits of strategic planning and implementing it with a balanced scorecard is that you get that really solid connection between the strategic 10, 20-year goals and the day-to-day activity of everybody in the organization. And that is something worth striving for. So a strategic management system looks for these 3 things: commitments, decisions, and actions. It is, by the way, only actions that create results. You can be committed to something. You can make a decision. But how many decisions are made and never acted upon or implemented? So these three are really important in developing a strategic management. And you can see here that strategic competitiveness is when you are able to create a value strategy, which is implemented. It's sustained over the long term, with the benefits with current and potential competitors are unable to duplicate. In terms of competitiveness in a commercial environment, competitors will copy each other almost instantly. So if somebody brings out a particular product or an enhancement or a feature of a product, another competitor will do the same. But once you begin to get into this mindset of strategic advantage, there are certain things that are very difficult to copy or imitate. Now, above average returns is what a shareholder or the owner of a business expects and wants. So the ultimate value of a business is what the shareholders put into this. So if you've been following the news in the last few days, you would have heard about the changes that the new chief executive of BP have made. He is maybe being forced to take the decisions to change the business in a very dramatic way. He's making job losses. He's changing some of the operations in different countries. He's beginning to change some of the direction of travel for their marketing and operations in very large and profound ways. And he's doing many of these things all at once together. Now, when he announced all this, the share price dropped by about 30 to 40%, just as a kind of like, oh my goodness, what's going on at BP? But as they began to realize and listen to his plans and realize the strategy he had developed, the share price has gone back up. Share price is the ultimate, if you like, yardstick or measure of a business, but it's a long-term gain. Many shareholders will come in and out of a market for short-term opportunity and have no real commitment or long-term interest in a business, but some do. And those are the shareholders we have to, as a business, satisfy. Let's try another poll before we move on to the next session. I mentioned there are different elements of a business. You've got finance, operations, sales, HR. Let's see what your thoughts are in terms of the different departments. This poll asks you very simply, what do you think is the most important function in a business? I know they're all important. You couldn't run a business without finance, without marketing, without HR and operations. But if you had to choose one as being the most important, which one would you choose? Click on the option, quick as you can, and I'll share the results with you in just 1 minute. Okay, once again, we've got a clear leader coming up. It's very interesting, this is. It's not what I thought it was going to be. Okay, keep going. Click on what you think. If you're going to increase the budget of one of these, increase the head count, which department would you say deserves the most? Which is the most important department? As soon as we get to a certain percentage of voters, I'm going to pause it. Nearly there. Another 15 seconds. If you haven't voted yet, please make your mark. Okay, so that's the time up there. So let me end the poll, and I'm going to share the results with you. So 40% or thereabouts, 39% of you believe marketing and sales is the most important functional department in a business, followed by HR and training, followed by finance and accounting, and then finally, poor old operations. Well, no one likes operations. In many ways, the operations, the CEO of a business, the chief operations officer, are in many ways invisible. We only get to know about operations when something goes wrong, which is someone told me recently, which I thought was quite amusing. So marketing, sales, I think that's the most visible, and it's often the easiest to judge their results. But interesting poll. We've got a couple more of those for you before we leave today. So let me just share that away. Now, strategic planning, just to summarize, this is a nice way of doing it. You send your chief executives and their team of senior managers away, and they come back with a mission and a vision statement. They then work with department heads and come up with some strategic drivers, which are based or developed into critical business issues, and then CSF, critical success factors. This is a real buzzword now, critical success factors. What does success look like? How do we measure success? It's a very, very important question. This then leads us to the SWOT analysis, which we're going to look at in just a moment. From that, we get long-term objectives and tactical initiatives. Now, it sounds quite complicated, and indeed there are, 8 steps in that model, but they do work very closely together. They're links in a chain. If you try to run an organization of anything more than 5 people without some sort of planning, it will result in chaos, argument, and disagreement. The business is led by its mission, not by its managers, as someone told me many years ago. A business is led by its mission, not by its managers. The managers can change. Indeed, they often do. The mission stays the same. Many of you will remember the successful years of Manchester United. Alex Ferguson was a phenomenal success in that business. He made Manchester United one of the most famous and one of the most successful football teams in the world, probably ever. He was one of the most successful managers, but it took him many years to achieve that status. And indeed, his successors to the throne of manager of Manchester United have also found that a challenge. But the vision and mission of Manchester United hasn't changed. They are still aiming for their same level of success and their model of the world they aim to achieve in. Let's get the spreadsheet dusted out. So this is an example. I'll let you just quickly look at this, and I'm going to explain 1 or 2 things of how a balanced scorecard might look and be developed. So this is one aspect of this, and you can see this is a performance metric around a customer focus. So we've got some metrics here around cost per inbound contact, the customer satisfaction rating, the percentage agent utilization, net first contact resolution rate, so how many problems were solved on the first contact, job satisfaction, and the average speed of answer of a support call or a customer service call. And the metrics are now developed, as you can see, going from left to right. There's a weighting, a worst and best case performance range, an actual performance, and a metric score, which goes on the balanced scorecard. So they've broken my rule of 5, but 6 is okay as well. So try and set a small number of critical performance metrics. Number 2, are they weighted for their relative importance? In one of the previous sessions, we mentioned the 80-20 or Pareto principle, in that 80% of the value comes from 20% of the items. So these 6, there might be 2 or 3, in this case, the inbound contact and customer satisfaction, which are very important, or more important perhaps than average speed of answer. Step 3, we need to have a worst and best case. These are the benchmarks between which we have to operate. What we aim for is the best case, but the minimum, the worst case, is what we mustn't fall below. The actual performance is recorded in column 4. Step 5 is the calculated metric, and step 6 is the balanced scorecard metric. So this is then measured and assessed on a regular basis. Whether you do this daily, weekly, monthly, or quarterly, or indeed annually, depends on your organization and the tools and technology you have to help you. So in many cases, that technology, by the way, is now built in to the computer systems, the customer service, the sales, the operations, and the financial management systems. So the reporting immediately produces a balanced scorecard metric, almost on a daily basis. So that's the balanced scorecard, really important area, and I would definitely urge you to look online and find some more information about that. It really is fascinating. But now let's look at the SWOT analysis. This is a key tool that comes after this. I'm going to explain the purpose of a SWOT analysis, how it works, and how you can link it in to both future objectives and initiatives. This is really where the SWOT analysis can be used. It should be used as a basis for all goal setting and objective setting. And you'll see how this works in just a moment. Now, what does a SWOT analysis do and what does it stand for? Well, it stands for strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. It's used to identify actions that an organization or an individual manager can take to best meet the requirements of the job or the promotion you're seeking, in this case, for a job role. In terms of the matrix itself, this is the model. So here we have at the top the strengths and weaknesses. At the bottom is the opportunities and threats. Now, if we look at this screen for a moment, you can see the top two boxes, strengths and weaknesses. These relate to today. This is the time scale of now. This is where we are at this point in time. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? Opportunities and threats are always going forward. They're looking outward in the next week, month, or year. The strengths and weaknesses tend to be more internal. Where are we in the business, in the organization, in ourselves as individuals maybe? And the opportunities and threats might be external. So they could be that of the environment, the economy, our competitors, interest rates, price of oil, job market, all those things. Okay. And then clearly on the left-hand side, strengths and opportunities are positive. They're helpful. And on the negative is the harmful, the weaknesses and threats. So the way a SWOT analysis is usually through a discussion amongst managers or specialists to arrive at an agreed list of strengths, an agreed short list of weaknesses within the organization or its approach in some area, the opportunities 2, 3, 4, or 5, and the major threats that exist. Now, this can be applied, as we've seen, to almost anything. You can do a personal SWOT analysis for yourself in applying for jobs or promotion. A marketing department could do a SWOT analysis for its products and services as they're perceived by customers, as we talked about 2 days ago. A sales manager could do an analysis of the capabilities and qualities of their sales team, the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities that they could develop but they haven't, and what are some of the threats or challenges that are out there in the market. You could do it for operations and finance. If you were an HR manager, you could run a SWOT analysis for, let's say, your recruitment policies, or maybe your employee satisfaction, the morale of your staff. So it has many different applications, and I would definitely recommend running it regularly as a manager or a specialist within an organization. Let's look at how we link the results of the SWOT findings to future objectives and initiatives, because this is what it's really for. It's a very interesting exercise to really understand the dynamics of where we are, but it's more important to use as a foundation to build our goals on. So, strengths map and overlap to opportunities. So which of the company's strengths can be used to maximize the opportunities you've identified? And we need to link them together, okay? The next one down, weaknesses versus opportunities. Which actions can you take to minimize the company's weaknesses using the opportunities you identified? And we'll come on to an example in a moment. On the right-hand side, which of our company's strengths can we use to offset or reduce the threat that we've identified? The next one down, the last one on the bottom right, is weaknesses and threats. How can you minimize the company's weaknesses to avoid the threats you've identified? So this is a dynamic, and each of these we then create a series of initiatives or goals which can then be linked back to the balanced scorecard. All right. So for example, let's imagine that you're doing this for a sales team and you happen to identify that you have a highly trained professional sales force and they're very good at what they do, they're very good at prospecting, and they've got very good results. The opportunity is they're not contacting enough customers. The opportunity is to grow the business by dealing with more customers. So the goals would then become how many new customers to add in a particular month or quarter, where are those customers going to be sourced, and so on and so on. A weakness might be perhaps a competitor is beginning to exploit some of the problems or the lack of functionality in some of your applications, say, of your product. All right, so what can you then do as a goal? Well, we could look at some redesign, we could look at improved training, we could look at adding functionality or features into our product to do that. On the other side, how can you use the company's strengths to minimize the threats you identified? Well, for example, if a competitor is coming in as a threat with a lower priced offering of a similar quality, well, we need to look at the strengths in our business and how we can overcome that. One of our strengths might be we might have a very good marketing department or more marketing budget, so we can offset their advantage by improving the amount of advertising and promotion we do. You kind of get the idea. You've got a baseline of the SWOT of your business, and you then use that as a space to develop your goals and initiatives. So to summarize it, it's all about discovering new opportunities and managing and eliminating threats. And this mindset of analysis is really important. Let me give you an HR example, because everyone thinks SWOTs are about marketing. So let's imagine that you are running a business and you need a certain number of highly skilled technicians to work in your plant. And they're hard to find, and they don't stay very long because they are then taken away by their competitive companies because of their experience and talents. So what you need to do is to discover ways to make them want to join your organization and make them stay. So what is it that's good about your organization? What are some of the strengths of your business that would make them want to join and stay as an employee? Okay, what are the threats? What are the weaknesses? And you begin to think about how you can improve your weaknesses and build on the opportunities and threats. So one opportunity might be to relocate people into your region from other areas. So there's an opportunity. Maybe you would give them a longer term contract. You would make it difficult for them to leave. So you would, because you're relocating and maybe paying their relocation expenses and so on. So there's lots of different opportunities. that can be built if you look at this strategically through the SWOT analysis. Here's an example of some of the questions that it can arise. Internal assessment of the organization, as I said, is always the first two boxes, the strengths and weaknesses. It's all about internal, and the external is all about what's happening outside the business. So this is now a marketing type of example. I'm not going to read all this through, but you can see the idea. There are a series of questions that will basically allow you to come up with the answers. So what are we good at? What are we not very good at? What could we do that we're not doing now that will be good for us? But what could take away some of our market share or cause us problems in the future? Now, a successful business a successful organization, a successful manager will run a SWOT analysis even in their head on a regular basis. They see change coming, number one, and two, they innovate and implement new ideas regularly. A less successful organization or manager doesn't have a strategic view, makes decisions too late, and often reacts too late or not at all to change. I'll give you a very simple example, which I know it sounds really silly, but it's a very, very important idea. McDonald's is one of the largest and most successful businesses in the world. It's a franchise organization with thousands of restaurants. It's almost certain that the great majority of you in this training today would have heard of McDonald's and possibly bought one. They sell burgers and fries and Coke. That's what they're famous for, the Big Mac and so on, right? Over the last 10 years, 15 years, there's been a general awareness of healthy eating. Salads, fruit, low fat, high fiber, you know, the kind of things you see all the time. Now, McDonald's changed very slowly and very late into that model. It didn't really affect their sales or perception until more recently, though. And they've had some big problems in some markets by not having these items on the menu. So they have now changed their model quite a lot. And you can buy some very nice healthy salads and wraps and vegetable options and so on, because they've realized the opportunities and they've also realized the threats to their business if they continue to be perceived as a burger and chips kind of operation. And by the way, those opportunities have been developed by looking at the way the stores are designed, and they're much more of a destinational stopping point now with the Wi-Fi and the family-friendly seating. And certainly in my experience, they're used a lot by business people as kind of part-time meeting rooms. So it's interesting how even a well-established, very straightforward business has to innovate and be aware of change. So, to summarize, a SWOT analysis is a very powerful technique. Please don't be fooled by its simplicity. It is essential if you're going to set your targets and think strategically, particularly in a niche market. It helps you to identify opportunities early and often. You need to be honest about the weaknesses of your business, because that's the only way you can overcome them. And also, if you're looking at the SWOT analysis for your own personal development, be honest about your weaknesses. The chances are you're going to be very good at 2 or 3 things and less proficient or competent at other things. Now, it's hard work becoming very good at something you're not naturally good at. However, you need to bring your weaknesses up to the level where it's no longer a threat. Here's an example. Let's imagine that you are an extremely good communicator. You are just a really good, charismatic communicator. You get on with people, you manage rapport, you're, an awesome dude, as a friend of mine would say. But you're not so good at timekeeping. Your punctuality, you're often late, you forget to do things for people. Now, you kind of get out of the problems because of your charm. Oh, I'm really sorry. I'll do that for you now. But you realize you have to up your game when it comes to punctuality and organization. You're never going to be the world's most organized person, but you just have to be good enough that it's no longer a problem, or in the terminology of SWOT, no longer a threat. And then build on your strengths even more. So make your people skills, your understanding of psychology and rapport and communication even better, because that's the opportunity. So there's an example of how we can all use a SWOT analysis in our own personal lives and the lives of your children too. This is a great idea for children as they're beginning to choose exams or go into opportunities. The threats is one about, as we've mentioned before, where are the problems coming towards us? The sooner you can see a threat on the horizon, the faster you can commit to doing something, make a decision, and act. In my experience, waiting doesn't usually achieve very much. Yes, you can wait to see how things develop, but know the threat is there and have a plan if you need to implement it. So the next module we're going to look at is a very important area called creating performance measures, which is all about goals and KPIs and so on. But what I'm going to suggest we do before we start the new module is we've covered the balance scorecard, and I've talked about the SWOT analysis and how that might work in different situations. And I can see there's a few questions and answers coming through. So what I'd like to do is to pause there, and for a few minutes before the break is take some of your questions and answers and see if I can do my best to answer the questions. So Anisha, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to glance through some of the questions that have been coming in.
Yes, I did. I did look through a couple of questions and picked out about 4 or 5 questions for you.
Yeah.
So we'll start with the first one. I noticed 4 different participants asking the same question, and they'd like you to differentiate between a vision statement and a mission statement.
Okay. Yeah, good question. And I get asked this a lot. Let me try and put this into context of an example. Let's imagine you're a technology company, maybe like a Sony or an LG. Okay, so a mission is your purpose for being, the organization. It's why you exist. Honda is an interesting company. They started making bicycles before they made motorcycles and cars. And their mission was helping people get to work. I think that was their initial mission, if you like. Their purpose was to empower people in their day-to-day lives through better transport. Now, that kind of underlies everything you do. It's almost like your faith. It's your values. It's your beliefs. It's who you are as an organization. The vision you have is something you create where people can be inspired and work towards. A vision has an achievement point, a mission doesn't. I could say my mission in life is to make people happy. Okay, that's my purpose. My vision would be something I can create, and it changes, and I have a target for it, and I create literally an image in my head of how that works. All right. So, and a vision could have a measure. So let's go back to the technology company. Now, Sony, for example, are very famous for having 100-year goals. This is extraordinary if you think about it. 3 or 4 generations of managers, and they have a 100-year business plan. In a world where we cannot even understand which type of phone or computer, what operating system we'll be using in 10 years' time, they still have a 100-year plan. So a job of a strategic manager is to create a vision which allows people to focus and aim towards something. Let me give you a very personal example. Here today in the world, we are recovering or coming out of the coronavirus crisis, or the COVID-19, or whatever it's called. Now, this year has been a difficult year for people and businesses in commercial terms and in personal impact and in all sorts of ways. If you were running a business, let's imagine you're running a restaurant chain or a shop or an oil company or an airline. You are faced with something you've never seen before. No amount of strategic planning would have anticipated what's happened with COVID-19. 5% of flights only are running. 95% of airline routes are stopped. Now, how are you going to motivate your staff and your shareholders out of this? Well, the only way of doing it I can see is to create a vision of where your business will be in 3 years' time. Describe in as clearer terms as possible how that business will be operating, the way it'll be running, the revenues, the flights, the whole thing. Create that vision, and that will motivate and guide people, more importantly, guide people through the next 6, 12, 18 months of hard work and difficult decisions and choices. If you or one of your friends, for example, have been made redundant as a result of COVID-19, a friend of mine is a pilot. He's just been laid off. And, to be honest, there's not many jobs going for pilots. So his vision is he wants to be a pilot again in 2 or 3 years' time. And in between that time, he's going to try and find other ways of moving towards that goal. So a mission is it's almost your personal purpose in life. And the vision are the ways you make that mission come alive. So Sony would set targets for how many laptops it wants to sell when it brings out a new model, or its market share for a particular television. And that's the vision it has for that product in a particular market. But its mission may be to become the #1 high technology provider of premium quality, televisions, whatever it is. Never changes. That's always the mission. It should not change. That's my thought. There's a great video, the Simon Sinek video. You may have seen this, the In Search of Why, the why, what, and how. That explains it really well in terms of the vision and mission. So I hope that answers it. But there's no easy answer, I have to say. So well done on such a challenging question. Another question, Anisha. Do we have a few more, please?
Sure. So the next question is from Ahmad Al-Khamdi, and this one is also related to vision and mission. So he wants to know, is it possible to modify your mission or vision in the future, or is it set permanently for life?
Okay, can you modify it? Well, the world in the last 20 years has changed a lot, and many organizations are having to change their mission statement because the world will be different for the next generation. If you're a car manufacturer, there may not be petrol or diesel cars. There may be only electric cars. There may not be cars in the world in 20 or 40 years' time. So your mission statement should adapt to your environment, to the economic landscape, the political, economic, scientific, sociological, and technical advances. If you were a company that was selling, I'm trying to think of an example here. Fax machines. If your mission statement was to make the most effective, cost-effective, wonderful fax machines in the world, well, you haven't got a business really today, because I don't think anyone's buying fax machines anymore. So if your mission statement is too specific, you will need to change it. Absolutely. Your purpose for being doesn't change, but that will change. When I used to work in an IT software business, our big joke was when we brought out a new software program, and it was, if this doesn't work, we're all selling pizzas. because our mission statement was very much about making businesses more effective. And we thought there's two ways of making the business more effective. One was buying our software, and the second one was giving out free pizzas. So that was always our joke. But yes, you should review your mission statement, but probably once every 10 or 20 years. It's not, you can change your goals, change your vision, change the initiatives that lead you to the mission. But if the world around changes you, don't be the one company that's telling everybody the world is flat when everybody knows it's round. So that's my thought. Good. And by the way, when they do that in companies, they change the manager. The BP manager is very interesting. He's recently come in, and I believe his job was to change the vision and mission of BP. The new broom will always sweep the cleanest, as they say. And this was another invention of Peter Drucker. He said, if you need a new vision and mission, bring in new people. And that tends to work. It really does. Good question. One or two more, please, Anisha. What else do we have?
All right, so let me see. Okay, so the next question is from Mohammed Al-Rashid, and he wants to know, how important do you think a logo of a company is?
Logo
of a company.
Logo of a company. Wow. Well, if you're in marketing, you would say it's hugely important, as would be the brand and the slogan or those sort of things. If you're not in marketing, you'd say it doesn't matter. I think it's very important because it represents the values and the ethos and everything that business stands for. Some logos look old-fashioned very quickly, and so they have to be updated. Let's take the Google logo. It's got these different colors. Every letter is a different color. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean, but it's very distinctive. Let's take a logo like IKEA or BP. BP is often written about in marketing case studies as being one of the best redesigns ever, because you're taking something which is basically not very attractive, which is a huge, big corporation that drills for oil and employs 70,000 people, right? The Disney logo, it's got the happy letters. So I think the logo is very important. And I know whenever I've been with a business that's changed its logo or changed its marketing, it has been a major, major decision and not something you should take on lightly. And I would also, having been someone who's designed their own logos, is never do that. Take the advice of a specialist who knows what they're doing. It's almost certainly an art form, choosing the logo. The Apple one is probably the most famous. Why has it got a bite out of the apple? Why has it got a bite out of the apple? That always fascinates me. But it does make it wacky. It's not called brilliant computers or something. It's got this thing, Apple. Why Apple, right? So yeah, I think it's really important, very important indeed, more than most of us mere mortals can understand. One more question, Anisha. Have we got another one we can squeeze in? Something else?
Yes, so I have a question from Hassan Al Nasir. So he'd like to know, have you used the SWOT analysis in the past, and has it proven to be helpful to you?
I use the SWOT analysis all the time. I do coaching, and I will work with an individual or a manager, and I will get them to do an individual SWOT analysis for themselves. What are they good at? What are they not good at? What areas of their personality or skills can they improve? And what are the threats that hold them back? I do it for businesses, and I use it for marketing, particularly important in customer service and sales. What are the product strengths or weaknesses? Where can we improve and add market share or improve the product? And what are the threats? What are our competitors doing? What's the demand in the marketplace? These kind of things. So I think it has I use it mostly for sales and marketing, but I think it has a really good role to play as well in looking at your individual department as a team of people working in a business, what is your SWOT? And I often throw it in meetings, and it's a great little activity to sort of break the ice in a meeting. And we get people working in groups and say, right, what are the top 3 strengths, top 3 weaknesses, opportunities and threats? And we can use that then as a form of discussion, but also to set goals. And as we talk in the next session, you'll see that's really important. If you don't know where your starting point is, you cannot set a future direction. You have to know where you are now to begin to move towards your goals and objectives. Good. So I make it 15 past the hour. That makes it break time. So I hope you enjoyed that session on SWOT analysis and balanced scorecard. When we come back in 30 minutes, we're going to reconnect with the whole theme of KPIs, goal setting, and performance measurement. All right, see you back here in 30 minutes.